intellectual nonsense.
To me, it just feels a little weird because it's like I do see that narrative and go like, I get why people would say that because it doesn't seem fair. Like where it's like, okay, well, all of a sudden this guy's just like running the country, and you're like, I mean, I didn't really vote for that, you know. So I understand that's the way that it goes because you're voting for the party and not the actual. Because it's different. Like that's the thing you think about in the states. They're like, oh, like this is the same thing. That's why I asked. Is the same thing that happened with Kamala Harris? It's like not really then, right?
Not even close. Not
No,
even close.
it felt the same because I went, well, Biden was there, and then it was kind of like, oh, okay, she's the next in line, and then it just felt like a bunch of BS. But like, okay, here's another question for you: the thing that Carney is doing, and this is why I kind of hate politics because it is a game, right? And like they're trying to win, and they'll do anything they need to do to win, rather than it felt like when you're a kid, like class president will say, I'm going to
Yeah.
do all these things for you. Vote for me. I'll do all these
Yeah.
things for you. That's what everyone probably thinks it should be. That's not what it is. It's how can I beat these other people, right? And
Yes.
get most of the population to want to vote, right, for my party or me, whatever. Where this whole time, Pierre Polyev has been basically he was like his biggest thing is what carbon tax, right? Axe the tax
Mhm.
and make Canada great and all this stuff. Um, and
And Justin
the
Trudeau
thing is,
sucks. That was his platform.
right? It was Justin Trudeau sucks. Well, he's not there anymore, and now Carney does this whole thing with this carbon tax, basically the optics. And I'm not saying this is how it is because you sent me the document there, but the optics we got rid of it, and now it's like, well, that's what Polyev was going to do. So here's the thing that's weird, and this is why politics pisses me off. Well, he was fucking here with Trudeau the whole time. So now all of a sudden, I'm gonna like redo all this shit, and then you get people that were maybe they're with Trudeau and they support all this stuff, but now that it's being flipped around and it's still their party, they still agree with it. What are we
So
doing
what
here?
so what I generally think happened is the carbon tax, and I hate to say this because I'm really not that much for it, but it's part of the world that we're moving in. We're transitioning into a world where there has to be a price on carbon. In order to trade with the EU, you need to have a price on your own carbon, or they don't want you to trade with them. Emerging Asian markets, I won't get into this long big spiel, but emerging Asian markets, China, everyone is going down this road where if your country doesn't have a carbon tax, and it's called 100 different things, but in the essence of it, if you don't put a price on carbon, you won't trade with them. The U.S. under Donald Trump has now eliminated this. They were going down this road. The Paris Accord, you can look it up. Um, the Paris Accord was forcing them to do this. So, because this became such a political issue in Canada, what I truly believe happened is Trudeau was preparing because the NDP was all over him to cancel it because it is a huge dollar figure on Canadian products, on our gas, on our food, everything. So it became a political issue where they needed to cancel this. They needed to make it zero. And I think Justin Trudeau was preparing to do this, but he knew for the Liberal Party and for his future political career, which he has aspirations to do other things, it's already in the media about it. He needed to step down. So they got together. I'm gonna go with everybody again. Everybody knew Carney was gonna win, so he had a meeting with Carney, and Carney said, "You do not talk about taking the carbon tax off until I get elected. I'm gonna do it." I'm going to make it zero because then I'll get the support. And it's exactly what you said. The guy went out there and he signed a document that's as fake as any document could be because he doesn't have executive orders like the Americans. Now we live in a position where we get a bunch of American news. So people think like, oh, Donald Trump signed this executive order. We do not have those in Canada. The prime minister can't just change laws like they can in the US. So he signed a document that basically said he's going to make this zero. He can't, but because he'll have the party's support to do this, and he'll have everyone's support to do this to make it zero, he knows on April 1st it's going to pass. So he basically went in there and said, we're going to make it zero on the consumer, which was a whole other gimmick because he's still going to have an industrial carbon tax on the biggest polluters, which is like steel mills and your oil your oil refineries. They're still going to be paying a price on carbon, which is still going to get passed down to us as the consumer.
Right. So like this was something where I was like, is this just like a kind of, I don't want to say a stunt, but like, hey, I'm gonna show myself signing this thing because most people are gonna see it's the optics, right? Like that's a lot of politics
Correct.
is what someone like me that's just honestly just like an average guy that doesn't really I feel like I felt like I even saw through it a little bit. I'm like, well, it just made no sense to me that it's like you're doing this to take away the conservative platform, which is smart because most people are going to just be like, "Oh, cool, great." Like it's like, "Well, wait, you didn't you remember what happened the last 3 or 4 years? Like they did
Three,
this. It's like they
10,
made the mess and
10.
now they're going to clean it up." It's like, well, that's ridiculous. Like it's like me, taking this thing and just pouring it all over the floor and then I clean it up with a paper towel and you give me a pat on the back. Good job, buddy. It's like, "Well, I did it. It was my mess." Right? So,
So yes, to a certain extent, I'm a very big believer that Trudeau went down a path of an egotistical maniac who started pushing policies that weren't good for the country, but he thought they were good. And again, people say Trudeau's dumb. He was the prime minister of Canada for freaking 10 years. The guy's not an idiot. He just isn't. Do I agree with any of his policies at the end? No. But I'm saying this because I think it trickles down. So, like, obviously, the Liberals have a leader in Trudeau, and he sits there and is convincing everybody why they should do things and and maybe a bunch of people are yes people because they're trying to gain that political leverage. Like you want to be a cabinet minister, and then you don't want to lose being a cabinet minister in Canada because it props you up if you have if you want to become prime minister or further your political career. So I generally think that does happen in the political landscape and the realm of politics is you get a bunch of yes people. And what was happening was they had to get rid of him because being a yes person to him now inherently hurts you as a liberal. If you were a liberal candidate, you weren't going to get elected because you were tied to Justin Trudeau. And a bunch of liberals in Quebec and Ontario and BC tried to separate themselves from him, which was why the party collapsed under his leadership. But now with Mark Carney involved, I think he's a very intelligent person. I think he understands politics. He's been around politicians his whole life. Mind you, he's never been one. But I think under his leadership, he goes, guys, we like everyone knew they had to scrap the carbon tax on consumers to zero. If they didn't do that, they were losing the election a landslide. And like you said, it's a game. He wants to win. What's he gonna do? Pierre Poilievre for 5 years of saying axe the tax. They just axed the tax. All right, Pierre, what do you got next?
well,
I
that's what
don't
I
know,
was going to say.
Justin.
Well,
He's
now
gone
what?
too. And well, and you as close as I do and you might not even know what I'm about to say. The Conservatives went from 3 months ago having a 98% chance
I've seen
Conservative
it
majority.
and
Dude, the Liberals
it's
have a
right there.
55% chance of
Yeah.
having a majority.
Mhm.
Right. But the other thing you got to realize is Jagmeet Singh before Trudeau stepped down was we're not gonna support the Liberals, we're gonna go to an election.
Mhm.
Now that Carney's in, the NDP won't call an election. They're about to lose 12, 12 seats.
Mhm.
Right? They don't even have that many to begin with. Now they're going to lose 12. They're not calling an election. The smartest thing, if I'm sitting in Mark Carney's shoes, is government comes back on March 24th. So he should probably pass this law to confirm that there's going to be no carbon tax April 1st, and then immediately call an election.
Mhm. Because that would
Because if
probably
you
be
call
the
an election
highest.
quickly,
Yeah, that's the people where people are going to go, "Oh, well, that kind of didn't that happen the last election too? Wasn't that where they were handing out like CERB and all that shit and they called an election and
yep,
it was like, well, of course people are
yep,
going to be like, "Hey, the liberals they're great. They gave us money." And then like
yep,
6 months later like you got to pay it back. It's like,
you
"Holy
got
smokes."
it.
So
And that's
so
exactly what happened.
so then now what's Pierre going to do? Because but like I said, they took away kind of the power of like what he was running on. So it's like now
This is
you got to pivot a little,
this
right?
is the question. So the best thing for Pierre is that Mark Carney doesn't call an election. Trump puts his tariffs on globally because he's putting global tariffs. It's not just on Canada, and it hurts us. And Pierce sits back and says whatever he does and comes up with a new slogan. And the Liberals continue to look bad under their leadership, and we keep getting hurt economically in Canada. Now, if that happens, because we have to have an election before the end of November, for sure, 100%, that's written in stone. And if he waits until then, I think Pierre brings back a chance. But if Carney calls the election, let's say beginning of next week, I honestly can't see him winning. And I think what's going to happen is he's going to win. He's going to win a seat and announce his retirement from politics. Because typically, Jagmeet Singh is the only leader that has went through, I think, 2, maybe 3 election cycles now as the leader of the NDP party, has never won, and is still the leader. Typically, if you're a liberal or a conservative and you lose the the race, you step down and give somebody else a try to get a new idea, a new leader, a new face to win. And I genuinely see that's the case of Pierre in this case. And like a month, 2, 3 months ago, I would have told you there's absolutely no way he loses.